Hello, my name's Cliff Freilich. I am the Executive Director of Cinema St. Louis, and we are the presenters of the 29th Annual Whitaker St. Louis International Film Festival. We're absolutely delighted to be joined for a conversation about the film Linda and the Mockingbirds by director James Keach. James is actually an alum of the festival. He was here with his narrative feature film, Waiting for Forever. That was some years back, about a decade ago. And we also showed Stacy, his brother, was here at the same time, and we showed the great Walter Hill's Western, The Long Riders, in which they played brothers. So welcome back, James.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
All right, so I wanted to talk initially, obviously, about the film, but we want to also explore just a little bit of your own career, which is quite diverse and interesting. But let's start with the movie. You were a producer, obviously, on the terrific Linda Ronstadt documentary that was making the rounds last year, and that was a huge hit. I mean, I know a lot of the art houses in the country were really grateful for that film because it produced some major business, and of course, it's accessible now. I think on HBO Max and probably elsewhere. So, is that where this started? Did you spin this off because you became interested in the subject, this sort of portion of what Linda does? Talk a little bit about the origins of the film.
Well, actually, I was doing the interviews for Sound of My Voice, and one of the last interviews for that movie was one with Linda Ronstadt herself, and she said, "James, I don't want to do the interview in San Francisco. It'll just be another talking head, and I'm going to Mexico with Los Sensoles, my friend Eugene Rodriguez and Jackson Brown, and they would love to have somebody film the dancing and music. He's taking 30 kids from Los Sensoles. That's a group called the Mockingbirds in San Francisco, and Eugene's been working on it for 30 years. He's got a cultural center, and Linda has been supporting him. So she said, "Why don't you come and film there, and film and I'll do an interview and just film the dancing for us, so we could have a really professional looking video at the end." And I really had no choice. And I said, sure, because we really wanted to do the interview, and we needed it. And so that's how it started. So, and then I started hearing the stories of the people from Los Sensoles and talking to Eugene about what he does with the group, and then getting into Linda's. We were going to Bonamici, which is the home of her grandfather, her paternal grandfather. And so that's how it started, and the film is the result of it. I had no idea I was going to make another film, and it just organically happened. It also happened at the time when President Trump was marginalizing Mexican Americans, and it was very upsetting to me what he was saying about these. I was sitting with these people, and when watching their reactions, it was horrible. So anyway.
Obviously, some of the interview, of course, was featured in the documentary, focused exclusively on Linda. But at what point did you realize, okay, I've got all this other great material that I was asked to shoot. How am I going to? I should make a separate piece that actually concentrates exclusively on this. What was the decision-making process?
Well, I think it actually started the first day I met with everybody. Eugene had told me the story of a couple of the teachers that had come across the border as children, and I had never crossed the border in a car. I'd flown into Mexico a couple of different times, and I said to Lucina, I said, so why don't we spend the first day interviewing on the border? And when I got to the border, it was obviously quite dynamic the way it looked. And she started telling her story, and it was very emotional. And it just took off from there. I realized that I had the opportunity to tell the story of these people who had come across the border at one point in their life illegally and come back now returning legally, and the interaction between the kids and the dancing. And there was Jackson Brown and Linda, and talking about Linda's experience being a Mexican American, and it just grew from there. It like all documentaries. Documentary is like a sculpture, you have a stone that's there, and it starts to reveal itself, and this movie started to reveal itself. very quickly. And I think the end result's good.
Very good. And I thought your decision to actually shoot there on the border resulted in some of the most moving and compelling parts of the film, obviously. You also made the decision to sort of incorporate you yourself and your own reactions to what these people are going through into the film. I'm curious as to whether that was just simply, well, this is how the footage works and I think I need to have it, or whether you wanted to actually have that sort of outside perspective of you reacting.
But generally, I've tried to stay out of the documentaries, and not have my voice there, or sometimes be a narrator. But in this case, I wanted people to see that there was a very different looking man. The guy, my questions were on screen, were in the film, and I didn't want to take a lot of focus, but I wanted the audience to know that this wasn't just a political or a political ploy to get a point of view. I wanted them to know that we were really shooting this, and this was the real thing, and this is what it was like. And also, I think there was a message that I wanted to give to other white, middle-aged fellas and women, that we're all the same. And I wanted them to emotionally feel what I was feeling, and I didn't want them to think that this was a news broadcaster trying to stir up anything. This was just a filmmaker trying to tell a story. And sometimes it's good for the audience to know that somebody is really there and really asking these questions and I wanted them to know that this was my experience, how I experienced these people, because I'm not of their culture. I'm not of their heritage, I'm from a very different background. And I wanted them to understand what it was to go into that background from my point of view.
No, I thought it was a really smart decision to sort of have you as the audience surrogate for the white audience surrogate, to give that perspective as to the revelations, the impact, the emotional impact also on you, and you can see it as those stories are being told, and it's sincere.
Yeah, it was very powerful, very, very powerful. Yeah.
So you grapple with a lot of obviously serious issues that are much in the news and continue to be very much a part of our home. It was also quite joyous because of the music and the dance that's featured in it. So how did you try and find that balance as to what you were going to, the tougher parts of the film that you wanted to explore, but also having a good representation of the reason why you were making it, the music and the dance?
Well, I think, when we first started editing it, we put in political figures, and it just didn't feel right. It's just that, why give more voice to that negativity and to those untruths about the humanity of these people. And the music tells the story. The thing is that you hear a Woody Guthrie song written in 1938, and you realize things haven't changed that much. And the music could carry the story emotionally in a joyous way. And yet it's like a love song where somebody's heart gets broken. You'll sing the song, but you'll also feel the emotion. Mm-hmm. And so I think that the music, the intention was to let the music carry a lot of the sentiments that these people were feeling, and they'd written songs about their experience, and Jackson Browne had written songs about his experience. And I thought that was stronger than somebody sitting there telling you, these people shouldn't be talking this way,
Right.
That didn't work that way. It just didn't. It made it a different film. It made it something that I didn't want to do. And the films that I like to do, I like to uplift the audience. There's enough negativity in the world. I mean, and still make the statement about we have to be conscious and empathetic and compassionate to the plight of other people. But along the way, I want them to be uplifted and know that there's a way to do it without having a complete negative bias about everything and everybody. So.
And it's really wonderful to have Linda herself, obviously, as being the way into the story, because a lot of people will be lovers of her music and come to the film to watch it. They might not have wanted to watch a film about issues on the border and Mexicans' difficulties integrating into the U.S. and questions of identity. So allowing that, and of course Jackson Browne, also knowing that he's in the film and getting a chance perhaps to hear a song from him, all of that was a great way of entering this story.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was a real gift, obviously. Linda, I say in the film, there's a little moment where I said, Linda, you tricked me, and she laughs, about coming down, because but she's so smart, I think, you know, it was just knowing that Jackson was going to be there, knowing that Linda was there, knowing that they were going to be accessible to talking about what the experience was. It was a gift to me, and I didn't realize it at the time, and I realize it now, but I think we all got to say what we wanted to say without hammering anybody over the head. For me, it was a beautiful experience, especially with the families, especially with the families of the kids, their moms and dads, and talking to them back in their homes up in Richmond, and seeing that these people coming into their homes, they're just like you and me, and and the journey that they've been on, some of it is very frightening, and I think that if we think about our grandparents, coming from other countries and coming here, trying to integrate, and the fear of other people, that they're going to take over their jobs, and instead of being part of the community and being of service and to all of us, which they are, and not having the respect that they deserve, which we all deserve, was very, very moving to me, very moving.
And it is to the audience as well. I think anybody who watches the film is going to have a similar reaction to you on screen. I wanted to talk a little bit also about your path through your film career, which is quite interesting. You started as an actor, and you still keep your hand in every now and again. You appeared on Ray Donovan not too long ago, one of my wife's favorite shows, by the way. But you moved into directing fairly quickly in your career, and a lot of television work initially. Then you did some feature films, narrative, but recently you've been devoting a lot of time and energy to making documentaries. The one that most people are going to be familiar with is your terrific film on Glenn Campbell, but obviously serving as a producer on Sound of My Voice, and then you've got lots of other credits. Talk a little bit about your pathway through your career and why you made those different decisions.
Well, kind of like this movie, it's an accidental thing that happened. I produced a movie called Walk the Line years back, and John Cash asked me to make the movie of his life, and he very distrusted Hollywood a lot. And for good reason. I think that, a lot of people at studios are wonderful, great executives, but there is a bias to commerciality. And John was very concerned that his faith was going to be not in the movie. And he said, nobody wants to talk about somebody who believes in God and in Hollywood. And, I don't know if that's true or not. I obviously there's been a lot of faith-based movies that have done very well recent years. At any rate, John asked me to make the movie, and the movie was a big success. And after that, other people came to me and asked me to make other music docs or music narrative films. And one of the guys was a guy named Julian Raymond, who actually did the score for Glenn Campbell and Sound of My Voice and this movie. He was an A&R guy at Warner Brothers, and a very good songwriter and composer. And he was producing my son Johnny, who was 13 at the time, his music. And he came over to the studio, and after one of the rehearsals, he said, I'm doing Glenn Campbell's record. Why don't you make a movie about him? And I said, I don't know if I want to do another narrative film about a musician. And he said, he's got Alzheimer's. He's going to tell the world he's got it, and we're only going to do 5 shows. And so that began that journey. And 5 shows turned into 171. And I got to see Glenn Campbell's experience as a documentarian, for 2.5 years, up close and very personal. And it was a different experience than I'd ever had as a filmmaker. You write scripts, you make it up, you imagine it. Instead, it's unfolding right in front of you and you're recording it. And so it became a different, I'm still using cameras, and I still have the narrative bias as a filmmaker, to have main characters and focus on them. It's not, my way of making documentary is not to have a lot of archival and talking heads if I can avoid it. I want to get into the character, the emotion of the characters, just like in a narrative film. And so that began, and Glenn Campbell spurned a lot of people saying, would you tell this story? We did a story called Augie, which was about a guy with ALS, and it was a really beautiful film. But since he wasn't very famous, it didn't have a big broad base, but it was very well received. And then I did, out of the Glenn Campbell movie, I met the people at the scientific researchers at Eli Lilly and the scientists, and I did a movie which just came out recently called Turning Point, which also just came out, about finding a cure for Alzheimer's, and the stories of the research scientists, which today, of course, is very contemporary because they're all trying to find a cure for COVID, or a vaccine, I should say, and so everybody was thinking of pharma as the big bad pharma, but really pharma is about the scientists. At the end of the day, it's like film is about the actors and the directors and the producers and all those guys, but the studio is about the money. The pharma is about the money, but the pharma itself is about finding cures for things. So that was another character study that we just did. And so I've really enjoyed delving into finding the humanity, the thing that I connect with in my own life that you might not, as an audience, have ever thought about. Like, does the scientist who create a cure for COVID, did his father or mother die from it? In the case of also the Turning Point, all the scientists' families all had Alzheimer's in it. And so did the head of the pharma company. So it becomes a different journey as opposed to, the news. It's just a different thing. So I really like it. I'm still making narrative films. We're doing a film about Beaumarchais, who funded the French Revolution. It's a wonderful historical piece, and we might be doing Glenn Campbell, a narrative version of that. But I'm still working on other docs. I love it. It's great.
You also seem to have found sort of a thread that connects a lot of those documentaries, in the sense that you're dealing with medical issues, whether that was intentional at the outset or not. It ends up becoming a big piece of what you're doing with Parkinson's, with Linda, ALS, Alzheimer's.
Well, the neurological, there was a section of time where the neurological thing connected everything, that's for sure. I think as people age, it's going to be a reality for all of us in some way or another. And I mean, to do to do Lady Gaga's documentary at this point would be interesting, but it wouldn't have that long character timeline. Believe me, I don't relish working on films where people are sick. Linda, we stayed away from it in this film. She obviously has Parkinson's, but we don't talk about it. There's one moment in the film she just says, "I wish I could still sing." The audience gets it there. We don't say any more, and the last thing she wants to talk about is that. Yeah, but you're right. It's an interesting area, but obviously we all have issues in our life. I mean, we've been thinking about doing a documentary on just the whole world of pain, and what does pain, everybody suffer, and making it a documentary from like Nat Geo or something like that. It'd be very scientifically, but if you think about it, we all have it from the moment we're born to the day we die, in some form or another, whether it's emotional or physical or, and so, but to take characters that have suffered through it, it's like, it becomes a different thing. It becomes an emotional experience for all of us. We can have compassion and empathy for other people that are suffering similar things that we are. Not that I want to focus on that kind of stuff, but it's just an area. That's all.
All right, let's wrap things up. I'd like to just briefly, you made reference to the fact that Linda is very smart. And I just wanted to relate a brief story, and then you can expand slightly, in the sense that I first, I was a big fan of Linda Ronstadt, but I never thought of her as somebody who had, major intellectual firepower. But I saw a documentary, probably 15 years ago or more, on the Beach Boys and Brian Wilson, and she was one of the voices in it. And I thought she was the single most compelling and interesting voice in that film. And it was revelatory. It's like, holy cow, she is intensely smart. And that's also evident in Sound of My Voice. And then also in this film, the empathy that she shows is pretty remarkable. So I just wanted to, see if you had any final
Well,
thoughts
Linda
on Linda
Ronstadt,
Ronstadt.
I think she left college her first year at the University of Arizona and to go and become a singer in Hollywood. The fact is, she's probably read more books than any professor at that school. She's an autodidact. She is insatiable in terms of her quest for knowledge. And when you talk to her, she doesn't suffer fools gladly. I can tell you that. She is incredibly bright and very sensitive, and at this point in her life is completely forthright in her feelings about what's going on in our society. And I'm sure she's polarizing at times, but that's okay. At least she's being honest. She's telling the truth and her truth. And she's that way about music. She was that way when she saw the film. She, and which I was very pleased about. She had very, very no notes. Not that she had any say, but obviously you don't want to make a film about somebody that they hate. So you showed it to her before you saw it, and but she's just a remarkable. And she's also, when you meet her, even at this age, she's got a glint in her eye that is very. It's seductive in a strange way. She's mesmerizing. She's got the it thing that a lot of stars have.
Mhm.
She's very comfortable in her own skin.
All right, well, great. Thanks again for taking the time to chat with us about Linda and the Mockingbirds. I hope people have enjoyed watching the movie and hearing from you.
Nice seeing you again.
All right, thank you, James.
See you. Bye bye.